Thank you so much for being here. We're so honored to have you. It's a special evening for us because not only is this a well-known editor, an author, an actress, but she's ours. She belongs to Bath. I know when people see Marty going down the street with Mother Courage, as she calls her.
My grocery cart.
Yeah, her grocery cart. They have no idea who she really is, or the kind of exciting, interesting, fascinating life she has led. In 1976, isn't that right?
Still
76?
leading.
It's still leading, yes, that's right, it's not over. Dublin next
Not
week.
until the fat lady sings.
That's right. She'll be in Dublin on the 19th for the official opening and, what do you call it?
Irish launch.
The launch, thank you, I couldn't remember the word. The Irish launch of the 4th volume of Samuel Beckett's letters. Now when you see her going down the street, you don't know that she's been an actress and that she has been an editor and an author and more importantly, a dear and trusted friend of Samuel Beckett. In 1976, you met him. And from that point on, a friendship grew where he came to trust her enough to entrust his correspondence, his letters, to her keeping.
I was the most surprised person in the whole world.
Well, we're not. He couldn't have done picked a better person because she, in every thought and deed and action, honors Samuel all the time. I have learned more about Samuel Beckett in just it. You see the connection between the election, between Hamilton, between all the things that are happening in culture. Marty can tie it to Samuel.
He's around all the time.
Right. So, without further ado, please help me welcome Marty Fehsenfeld.
I just can't thank you enough all for coming, really. People ask me, inevitably, when did you first meet Samuel Beckett? So, I go to the blog. Actually, it's in the blog, but they're hard to get. So, I'll start with that. I first met Samuel Beckett at the Royal Court Theatre in London in 1976. It was during the time Billy Whitelaw was performing Footfalls. That was Beckett's play. I knew this was an important technical rehearsal, and I was lucky to be there, or was I ever. I was sitting with Dougal Macmillan, who I worked with on Beckett in the Theatre, which is now available even now, which is incredible, and is read all over the world. I was sitting in the back row of the theater. I saw that Beckett turned his head, raised his gaze to recognize I was out there. This was a shock. He walked up to the last aisle, entered the row that I was in, put his hand out to me and said, "I'm Sam Beckett." No warning. Our first connection. It was during the time Dougal and I were co-editing Beckett in the Theatre. I just signed the contract that day. And he said something, first of all, like, he's not coming. But I said, well, it's a technical rehearsal. Of course he's coming. The first encounter was the first of many, many meetings that I had with Beckett from then on. One day, much later, in the 90s, this is 1980, sorry. Barney Rossett, Samuel Beckett's American publisher, phoned me up and said, "Are you sitting down?" I said, "Is Sam all right?" I knew that he'd been with Barney. Sam is okay. Sam is okay. But he's going to let his letters be published. Barney paused. I paused too. "Are you still sitting?" He asked you that you edit them. What? Well, what shall I tell him? Oh, well, I said, I've never been so terrified and excited at the same time in my whole life. Is that okay? Barney said, I guess it'll have to be. Sam originally put Barney in charge of the Letters project, making him general editor. But Barney never knew what to do with me. What was Beckett like to work with? Electric. Without warning. Immediate. Innate politeness. Victorian decorum. Extraordinary. Memorable. I can quote so much of what he said to me, even today. I asked Beckett at the outset, why me? There are an awful lot of other people that are much better qualified than I am. My French isn't really that good. He said, rubbish. I picked you because I trust you. So I faded away and said, thank you very much, or something dumb like that. It was extraordinary because I had the feeling that he didn't really like me, frankly, very much. I didn't have the occasion to have a particular feeling to me one way or the other. Why was he initially reluctant to have his letters published? He was an intensely private man who kept his private feelings to himself. Good God, how we'd be today. Huh? Even after he asked me to edit the letters, he knew he couldn't disguise that. He said, I said, okay, all you need to say is stop, and it will be done. His answer was, oh, it's gone on too long. Oh my God, it's gone on too long. A kind of regret, inevitable, resolution, ergo, I'm stuck with it. I have to stay with it. It was always yes and no for him. Always together. But he was a man whose word was his bond. How incredible is that today, or any day? He cautioned me, you're going to need some help. I said, you bet I am. And then I mentioned Lois Overbeck. She had worked with me on a number of projects to do with Beckett. And I knew her proficiency and dedication to his work. He said, just as long as you get along. We have mostly, but in 30, now almost 40 years, who can say positively yes? I couldn't, but we did. And there were two others, two men and two women, imagine it. And the two men were European. One was a Scot living in France. The other was an Anglo-Irishman who'd gone to Pretoria, like Beckett, living in England. And we stuck together for 32 years. And we finished 4 volumes of Beckett's letters. And I think that's, in a way, the most incredible thing about everything. Why did he eventually agree to publishing his letters? As we published in the introduction to Volume 1, Beckett wrote to me, I can rely on you to edit my correspondence in the sense agreed on with Barney, i.e., its reduction to those passages having bearing on my work. Following this, there was a second letter, addressed to me. It didn't have the publication the first one did. I suppose it because the first one was such a clatter of surprise. They felt they didn't have to, but they squeezed it in somewhere or another in volume 1, and it appears even stronger in volume 4. But it said this: MF, by now we knew who MF was, surprise, surprise, has my permission to consult my letters and take copies in view of eventual publication of such passages as are relevant to her research. This permission applies to all my letters, to whomsoever addressed and wheresoever they are preserved. So that was thunderclap number 90 million, I think, for me. But it was important because it was a caveat to number 1, the other one, in 85. This also was 85. But I think it got in the way of the other letter. So it summarily got dismissed and appears in a kind of footnote. It wasn't a footnote. It was Sam's changed mind. I don't think anyone knows exactly why Sam agreed to having the letters published. He could have been influenced by our mutual friend, somebody who is and always will be important to me, Alan Schneider, the great American director who allowed Sam to let his work be put on the stage because he trusted Alan to know what he wanted and how he wanted it done. Alan's letters are held at UC San Diego La Jolla Library, perhaps as an influence for Sam. Deirdre Bare's unauthorized biography may inadvertently have persuaded him. You got to get it done right, after all, and this certainly was not entirely right, as he knew and as he said. It was a lot of stuff that she made up. But it was the first, let's face it. She was the first one to get it done. And for that, we owe her a debt of gratitude, regardless. The main thing was, I think Sam knew his letters would be published. It was inevitable. He said to me one time, one day it'll all come out. And it did. So that's the beginning. And it goes on. That's the incredible thing. One thing he said to Lois Overbeck and me when we were starting to work together: you will get around and see these people, won't you? We did. We still are. And that was the hermit, Samuel Beckett, saying that. See those people, see these people. And now we're hearing in this panoply of thoughts and non-thoughts and dreams and non-dreams and mess and horror for some of us, and mostly doubts and hopes. It's all about going around and seeing these people and hearing what they have to say and listening to them and paying attention. Not speaking all the time, not talking all the time, using your ear. Remember that? It's up there. It's a strong, strong thing that you're carrying. Those two ears. God, I wish mine were in better shape. But that is so important, listening. And the funny thing is, I was in the audience during a rehearsal of Beckett directing Billy Whitelaw in one of his plays, Footfalls. And I know afterwards, because it was repeated to me, Beckett said, this American woman came, she sat in the audience or in the house and said nothing. Nobody knew when she came and nobody knew when she left, but everybody knew she was there. I was listening. You better believe it. I didn't want to miss a word. And somehow I think that got to him. It was so strange that I listened. It's a great power, not used as well as it could be. It's true. And I think that's something that I can convey to whoever wants to hear it, because it makes sense. And so much that Beckett said makes sense. So anyway, here we go. Onward. The other onward thing is these 4 volumes is not the end of this work on Beckett letters. Because in 1974, I had written to Beckett in my total stupid innocence, because I absolutely loved this painter, Jack Yates, W.B.'s brother, who was an extraordinary painter. I certainly recommend him to all of you. You will love him. He's wonderful. And he became a great friend of Sam's. And this is before any of this happened, 74. God, nothing happened. I hadn't happened as far as I'm concerned. And I wrote him a letter asking him if by chance there's a letter that he might have from Jack Yates. He answered me, Dear Miss or Mrs. Fehsenfeld, and he spelled it out and it was correct. I don't keep letters, and I have none of those, few in number, of JBY. No subject there, in my opinion. All good wishes, Samuel Beckett. Well, to tell you how it's going on from where it is in volume 4 now, he kept letters. He kept over 50 of them. They were sent to publishers, they were sent to agents, they were sent to many, many, many others, asking questions. He wanted to answer them. So he kept the letters so he could. And he wrote the answer on the back of over 50 letters. And those letters, he arrived at the Café Français in Paris in a shopping bag. Horrible, remember, green and white, terrible looking shopping bag. And said, I've got some more rubbish for you. Put them in my lap. And I couldn't figure out where to go with them. Where was the best place? Well, I'd been working in Atlanta with Lois Overbeck, who was associated with Emory University. I said, okay, I'll try that. They're there. They're at Emory in the Rose Collection. They haven't been published. I'm going to work on them. I'm going to get some very wonderful young people who are crazy about Beckett and who want to keep on with this incredible journey. And we'll get the funding. because it's a good project. And volume 4 is going to do a lot to sell it to donors that have the wherewithal to be the help that we need. So I'm involved in another project on helping, and it's all Sam's fault. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marty.
Do you have any questions for Marty? And if you
Yeah,
do,
ask questions, and somebody's going to get some
we
kind
have
of
a
a...
microphone just because she wants to be able to clearly
Yeah,
hear
my
your-
ears are lousy. They're awful.
When you, is this on?
You know, it helps to push the button, the on button.
okay.
I did not do that, sorry.
Okay. Now is it on?
It is.
Okay.
Let's see. I'll interpret for you, Marty.
When you signed the contract with Cambridge, was it for 4 volumes? From the beginning, they knew that they would only do
Yes.
4 volumes?
Yes.
Because, as you said, there are other letters. You could have
Consecutively,
gotten more
starting with the 1920, whatever it was, 9, I think, and going right through to his death. Yeah, the whole thing.
volumes, but they would only publish.
It was
4
all structured and planned from the beginning.
So I'm a little confused, Marty. You say he didn't keep letters, but then you said he did keep some. So how?
I'm not going to hear you very easily, I'm sorry.
Is this one off
A
also?
little bit closer.
You need to hold it right up to your mouth.
Is that better?
Yes.
Can you hear me now? So you said that he didn't keep his letters,
Right.
except for maybe that 50. So I am wondering, how did you find all of the letters that appear in the volumes?
Any way I could. There was a squib that appeared in the New York Times asking for help, saying that I had been authorized by Samuel Beckett to do this. This took a lot of doing because people, frankly, didn't believe me for a very long while. Because Beckett was an inordinately private person. And anybody who knew anything about him was sure that he would never allow to have his letters published. And frankly, when Deirdre Bear did her biography, and it was not entirely accurate, to say the least, he was not delighted about it. And that became well known. And here was an American woman, my God, who is she and what is she and what has she done? And why is she there? I asked those questions too. I asked him. So it was not an easy beginning. But I think there was something that proved to be the clue for people. Because they came to realize he trusted this woman, no matter what. And because his trust was so important to the people who knew him, they spotted it. They knew it was real. And it took a time. Faith. Rome was not built in a day, and Samuel Beckett's letters were not built in a day, believe me. But it came.
And all the letters that he allowed pertain to his work. Is that correct?
No, remember that second letter. This is a very important point, because the very first thrust in volume 1, only those letters having bearing on my work, did not figure in the letter 2, and this applies to all my letters, to whomsoever addressed and wheresoever preserved. And if you have followed at all the reviews of Volume 4, you're not going to hear much about Letter 2, are you, Sue? That's another job I have. Try to clean that up. Because Beckett wanted Letter 2 to be important. Otherwise, you wouldn't have written it. He changed his mind. Whatever reason, he changed his mind. The problem was he did not date it. Date your letters, date your letters. He didn't date it. So consequently, undated letter is a caveat to letter 1. I mean, come on, you can figure it out, what happened. So one of my sense of honor and duty and necessity is going around and reminding people. This applies to all my letters, to whomsoever addressed and wheresoever they be preserved. The funny thing is, and this is sort of funny in the sense of ironic, the other letters got published. It had nothing to do with the work. And that was inevitable because he became important. He became popular. People wanted to know more about him.
Plus, that includes the juicy letters. No.
What?
I said that also included the juicy letters, the romantic letters.
Oh, sure, of course it did.
Yeah, the good
It
stuff.
included things that I don't know whether he would have wanted published or not. I don't know. But that was it. Cambridge was there, whatever. So somebody must have paid attention to that second letter, Sue,
Exactly.
of Sam's. Funny that it didn't appear as prominently displayed as letter 1. That's a question I've had for myself a long time. I keep having it. And the answer is, we already published that second letter in Volume 1. Go find it. It's referred to, isn't it, Sue, in the introduction.
Right.
But you can hardly see it. It's so squeezed into the introduction.
Nevertheless, it got done.
But everything got done by some amazing thing. I think it was the power of Samuel Beckett's being that overrode even what he most perhaps did not want.
Other questions?
I can yell.
Okay.
Did you find most of his letters in university libraries and archives?
No,
Or some letters were held by individuals?
a great many were, but not by no means not all of them, no. There were a great many letters to other people, quite unacademic. I am an unacademic, let's face it. I've been out of the box all my life. And I have a feeling Samuel Beckett liked that, because he was out of the box too. We were both non-academics. I got swept up into the academic world. I still am. Heaven knows.
Did you
But
just,
it's not because I was, I'm a fraud.
Not at all. Yes.
did you send letters just wholesale to many university libraries saying, do you have letters of Samuel Beckett? Or how did you find out what libraries had Beckett letters?
Well, because of the interest in the university, in the college, in the publishers, whatever, in getting those letters out. To help them, to make them look good, because by then Beckett became an entity that had to be dealt with. He became more popular than he ever wanted to be.
What letter means the most to you? What letter stands out to you?
Oh boy, that's a yeah. Isn't it? It's funny you mentioned that. Is this a clue? Because I had the great opportunity of watching Beckett direct 4 times. I saw him in action. And because I came to Beckett originally from the theater, the letter that he wrote to a translator and a friend of his who was Belgian. God, I hope I've got it. This has appeared somewhere else too. I probably have not got it in figures.
Tell us about it.
Well, it's the letter that I think now has been published somewhere, and that is, he talked about directing, which is not easy for him to do. He started off really not knowing much about the practical theater. That's where Alan Schneider came in. He met Alan in '55, and in Paris, and Alan was to direct, waiting for, as Beckett calls it, Godot, not Godot. And that was the beginning of an extraordinary relationship, because he said to Alan, among other things, it'll never be as I see and hear it in my head. And knowing Alan as I did, and I knew him very well, and I loved him very much, he said to Sam something like, well, Sam, if it's in your head, how are you going to have any luck with the stage? I mean, how are people going to know what's in your head? And because of Alan, who he trusted, again that word, they were put on stage. And I don't know why he wound up directing. I think he was pushed into it, but I think it was all a matter of getting it right, as it always was with him. And he wrote this extraordinary letter to Jacoba van Velde, and I have it somewhere, but God help me, I don't think I've got it here. I may have it somewhere in there. But the gist of it was, here I am, the director, this was 1969. Left, right, center, 3 languages, directing. Not a bad way to end a life. That's one of my favorite letters.
Nice. Anybody else? Yeah.
Do you think there are very many letters that you still haven't found?
Oh boy, I don't know. There are letters that I have found that people want to keep for themselves, and that's as they want to do, and as Beckett would have wanted them to do. As far as are the letters that I don't know about that are there, sure they could be. I don't know. There's so many, my God, hundreds and hundreds. No wonder the guy had time to write anything but letters. I'm dead serious.
Roger, did you have a question?
Marty,
Yeah,
what is your favorite work of Samuel Beckett?
oh boy, you know, that's the old thing about who's your favorite child. They ask them.
You can be pinned down sometimes.
Depends. I mean, let's face it, Waiting for Godot was the first one that I knew anything about. In 1955 in Boston at the Wilbur Theater. You see, I remember. I heard the words, I heard them. And I remember so well the words about one day I went deaf. One day I went blind. What does it matter? any day, any day, one day, one day. That stuck in my head because, in a way, Beckett's work is all about one day, and that one day could be any day. That transported him into any day of our lives. I see him right here. I feel him right here when all of this stuff is going on. I really do. I see him right here when I'm trying to figure out what the hell to do with the net because I don't know how to do it. And he's saying, well, what about privacy? What do you do about that? And I'd say, well, Sam, you know, this is the nubble, this is the mess we've got ourselves into because we've got open doors here. We've got anybody can come in and do anything and say anything. I think, what the hell of a mess? And I said, you better believe it is. Yes, one day, you could pick anyone. He's my mentor, and he's my mentor because he makes sense to me every day. And I want to know something sensible. And I hear him. And I talk to people, I talk to musicians who feel that way about Bach. I'm sure everybody has their own mentor that they listen to when they're saying, what in the world is this all about? What do I do here? And I listen to Beckett. And he speaks to me. He gives me a clue. He also says, it's up to you. And not enough is said now to students about it's up to you. That's what I hope for. Because for Sam, it was useless unless you put yourself to work. Unless you did something. That was right through the war, right through his life. He had to be useful. That's why that letter means a lot to me. One day.
Why was there so little mention of World War II in his letters? That was brought out in the New York Review.
Yeah. And mentioning that, there's this book by Joe Baker. And talk about serendipity, which is a lot of it, all of this stuff, really, believe it or not. I came to Bath, and I came because there were a lot of friends and a lot of family. My dad was with Alcoa, and that was part of his route, was to go to BIW. I heard about Bath when I was very, very much a kid. And Elizabeth Knowlton and I were very, very old friends. She claimed that I babysat her. Maybe I did. But there were many, many reasons why I came to Bath. And one reason that I found in Bath was another project which some of you know about, some of you don't. And it has to do with pre-war stuff, and it has to do with ships, and it has to do with masked agents, and it has to do with the Kennebec River, and it has to do with the Lambert Tavern, God help me. And somebody has given me a push to say that may be your next project. Well, maybe it will be. But that's a reason I found when I got to Bath. Not because I chose to go here, but because in some strange, wonderful reason, it was all a plan. All I had to do was follow the dots. And it happened with Beckett. There was a book called A Country Road, a Tree by Joe Baker, who had written a sort of fact fiction, mostly fiction, about Jane Austen. And this just came, didn't it, Sue? Out of the blue, really. There was this copy of, it's a pre-publication copy. And it appeared at the library bookstore. Oh my God, you know. Okay, Sam, what do you want me to do now? You know. But I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. And the thing is that Joe Baker got it so right on the nail and then she didn't know she had it. That's the trouble. Beware any other authors for anything. If you start out strong, for God's sake, stay with it. Don't lose it,
Is she
Well-
writing about Beckett?
Yes.
It is in a funny kind of way, because it starts out Kuldrina. She's misspelled that, by the way. That was the founding home. Spring 1919. The tree stirred, and the sound of the needles was shh, shh, shh. The boy swung a knee over the branch, heaved himself up, and shifted round so that his legs dandled. The scent of the larks cleared his head so that everything seemed sharp and clear as glass. He could still hear the faint sound of piano practice. But he could also see across the fields. From here he could see for miles and miles, and the sky was wide open as a cat's yawn. The side door of the house opened, click, and then her voice was calling out for him. Sing song. It's time. He chewed his lip and stayed put. The door propped open. He could hear more distinctly the bright ripple of music, a stumble, the phrase caught and begun again. Frank was trying hard to get it right. He, though, would not oblige. With her watching, he couldn't lose himself while playing. And if he couldn't lose himself, then what was the point of playing at all? I'm waiting. He didn't move. She gave out a sigh. The door clanked shut behind him. She came down a step onto the garden, looking for him. He dug at a scale of bark with a thumbnail, and so forth. But what happened was, thanks for coming.
She's amazing.
Anyway, this is Frank, his older brother, and it's what was going on for Sam in his childhood. But what was important, and what she got so perfectly, was he glanced up. This is now Beckett. He glanced up through the helix of branches to the sky, where clouds bundled and tore towards the mountains from the sea. On the lowest branch, near the trunk, the bark was polished smooth with the wear of his own hands. He reached for it, grasped it in his stinging palms, and heaved himself up till his elbows locked. His belly was pressed against the bough. Then he swung his right knee over the scaly bark, making the blood bead again. He stretched a hand up for the neck branch, where it hung, just above his head. He began again to climb. This time, he would skim up to join the clouds. This time, he would fly. That was Sam as a young boy. He felt like he was inside something he's trying to get out of. When he was given help by a wonderful psychiatrist, which he needed very much, he said he remembered being in the womb. He remembered crying out in the womb. And he remembered nobody listened to him. That's in his work. And she got this right about his climbing the larch trees outside of Kuldrina. But when she got into Beckett in the business with the war, and the reason he was in the war was because he couldn't stand to sit around and do nothing when other people were doing things that were important, that were good, that were useful. He couldn't stand being useless. And she got all involved with Suzanne, and she got all involved with this and that and so forth. You know, she wanted to juice it up, as you say. And she lost it, but by God, she had it right at the beginning.
So is it presented as a biography or just a fictionalized biography?
It's getting a piece of Beckett,
Historical fiction?
but not the whole meal.
Yeah.
It's easy to do. There's so much there. And, you know, it isn't easy because he isn't easy. Not because he's above everybody, it's because he's so there for everybody. And it's hard for people to accept what's there. They'd rather accept something that isn't there because it's easier. He's not easy. But he's so worthwhile as a writer. Believe me.
Well, don't you think it's incremental with everybody, what they're more and more ready?
It depends on the person,
Be
sure.
aware
What else
of.
are they going to use?
Right.
Sure, that's all they've got. Beckett himself said, that's all there is.
That's all.
At
there
the
is.
end, he talked about your own bloody self.
Oh.
And that's what all of us have at the end, our own bloody selves. He didn't mince words. He didn't have to. He used them so well.
Yeah.
He knew how to use them.
One last question.
Yeah.
I just think, I'd like to know that, as an actress, did you ever act in any of his plays, and what plays, and what roles?
Yes, I did.
Could you tell us about that?
Happy Days was extraordinary. I had watched Billy Whitelaw play Winnie in Happy Days, and that was eons ago. That good old eons is a very handy thing to keep in mind. It takes care of however many years there are. And I watched Billy. I watched Beckett director, and as it's been written about, they were one. One orchestrated the other. One was important to the other. One worked with the other so well. And I decided, again in my innocence, I had a lot of innocence where Beckett was concerned, I want to try this. I want to try and do it. So I said to him at one time, I said, am I out of my mind to try this? He said, no, indeed. He said, think of her as a bird with oil on her feathers. Well, he gave me the part. It was just like that. From now on, all I had to do, again, was follow the dots, because here I was. I wanted to fly as Winnie, as the bird. I couldn't because there were oil on my feathers. I wasn't sunk in the ground. I just couldn't move. So he gave me the actable aspect of Winnie. He never saw me do it, no. I thank God he didn't. But it was an extraordinary experience. And that was so interesting to me from another point of view as an actress, because I was dealing with time, different kinds of time. And I realized from then on that so was Beckett, dealing with different kinds of time. In fact, people have said there's Einstein quality, whatever, in it, in his work. And I think there is, but I'm not sure where. I know he has a work called Play, and there's a line in this work called Play, which is a play, a theater, and it has time in one place in a way that I've never seen it written before. The line is one single line, one single sentence. When will, future. All of this, present, when will, future. All of this, present, have been, past. just play. Einstein couldn't have done much better. He really couldn't. So with Winnie, I found a strange, wonderful thing. As an actress, I found I could bend a second. I had such a feeling of time being palpable that I could use it. I never felt that in any other time I ever played. I played in Footfalls.
Is that your costume behind you? Is that Footfalls?
Footfalls?
Behind you, the costume?
Yeah, the pile of tangled tatters, that was
Yeah.
me. And then the last one, which was very meaningful for me, called Rockabye. And I was directed by Walter Asmus, who was Beckett's chosen director, German, simpatico, as far as Sam was concerned. They worked very closely together. Very, very different people, very different. But Walter got the drift. He knew what was going on with Sam. And he worked very carefully with him, as only a German director can work. And he really didn't know what in the world I was going to do. But for some reason, I guess he thought, well, I might as well give it a go. I'll direct her, you know. And he got the shock of his life because he found out I knew what I was doing. But I did too, because I had to learn what I was doing. I didn't know at first. And everything I did was kitsch. That was the German thing. It was kitsch, you know. I thought, ugh. Ugh. So what happened was, I came to the point where I realized everything I was doing was wrong. Everything I was doing, playing, was wrong. Preparing, rehearsal, nothing. Imagining, letting back it, where I couldn't do it. So I just finally, what happened was, I got rid of it. I got rid of it all. I wound up bare. No clothes, no nothing. Literally, I mean, I don't mean I stripped. I mean, I stripped myself as an actress of any other possibility. I just stopped. And I listened, I guess, to myself or to Sam or to something. And then I could begin, because I was ready to begin. And when I played Rockabye, and it put on, I don't know, disc or something, what came after I emptied myself was real. It was what I'd wanted all along, and I didn't even know what it was, but I knew it when it was there. And that was an extraordinary acting experience for me in Rockabye. And it was in Atlanta at 7 stages. And it was, I forget when was it? 19 something.
I'm sorry.
I know,
Remember
I'm
that
sorry
date.
too, it makes 2 of us. But it wasn't too long ago. And the write-up was kind of interesting too. So, who knows? But anyway, I've been pursued by Beckett, and I have been pursuing him.
Still a dear friendship between the two of you, obviously.
Something clicked, yeah. And I never was one of his lovers, and he had them, and he adored them, and they adored
We
him.
all really wanted to know.
And nobody can understand how that worked out, but it did.
Marty,
And,
excuse me.
It was great. And it still is, that's the thing. It still goes on. Whatever this thing is, it still goes on.
Thank you so much for sharing with us.